That's a nice size shed.
Yeah, I wish the whole thing was man cave.
I like the side door access too. That's pretty cool, because that way if you got, like if you wanted to open it up and do projects and stuff like that, you got room to do it. And if you had people over and you wanted to open it up and like bring out speakers. So today I'm hanging out with Quade here in his man cave. This is pretty dang cool, dude. You've got quite a little setup here. I'm amazed at the finished wood. I'm amazed at how warm it is in here, considering it's kind of chilly outside.
Yeah, the guy had to do it. It's very well insulated. And that's all I got. I got that little space heater there. Yeah. I got it set most time on 50 because it gets so warm in here. But window unit for the summertime works really well. But yeah, it does. And I think that refrigerator too, you know, it puts off a lot of heat too. Yeah. So I think that's another reason. But yeah, so
where did you find this little refrigerator? That's kind of cool.
Buddy of mine, you might know. Do you know Clinton Rollins? He works for Pet. He's been with Pet. I first met him when I worked with Coke. Mm-hmm. I was running Sumter. Yeah. He run the Pet route in Sumter. He's a supervisor now. But anyway, him and two of our other friends converted their garages into man caves. I'm talking about like nice man caves. On a side note, when I first built this, and I called this my man cave, and when I invited them over, I was like, that's kind of a slap in the face of them. So this is more of like my she shed. So I felt it was a little disrespectful, you know, because of the way they have. But anyway, he hooked them up with free, you know, and he called me when I told him, I said, hey man, if you ever run into one of those refrigerators again, let me know. Yeah,
because they're constantly swapping out equipment and stuff like that and getting rid of stuff. So
he found it at the beach. He called me and he came and dropped it off, and
that's pretty dang cool.
I was really appreciative, you know, for a free beer fridge, and I hadn't had any problems. I cleaned it up. You know, it had a little spoiled milk in it, but I cleaned it up and turned it on, and it's been going strong.
Cool. Well, hey, since we're starting the podcast, let's talk a little bit about how we know each other. You and I work together, and we have worked at companies similarly in the past, at Coke and at Budweiser, and you worked at Budweiser too, right? No, just Coke.
When I came on at Coke, I think you had just come on.
I left in 2007, October 2007,
and I came in, I think, at February. Yeah. I was in Florence for about 2 months before we moved to Marion.
Okay.
And I think you either became a route specialist.
I was a specialist, and I became a salesman.
Yeah, and then you went to sales, and then I think you left, right?
They kept calling me. Here's the weird part: is they kept calling me to go back on a truck and run routes because people were quitting. Yeah. Because they moved to Marion. People just wouldn't show up, and I would be on my route trying to sell, and they would call me and say, hey, we need you to go back to the plant, pick up a truck and drive it to Rockingham or Somerville. I mean, it's always somewhere 2 hours away from where they're at, and I'm like, so on a constant basis, I had to drop what I was doing, go find somebody to take over my route, and then run that route, and then come back and meet up with them and get my computer back and try and upload whatever they sold.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they didn't have time to do their job and my job, so they weren't doing my territory at all. What the kicker was, like, I was willing to put up with all that during the transition, but the kicker was they called me in there to write me up because I wasn't putting signage out for the territory that I was supposed to be running. And I was like, does nobody talk to anybody around here? I said, y'all have literally had me on a truck every day for 3 weeks. I haven't had time to do my job. And I remember coming home to my wife and I told her, I said, I got people like Austin Parks and people like that calling me that I knew from Budweiser and that worked at Coke, calling me saying, come over here, what are you wasting your time for? You can be making twice the money. And I was like, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
And that day that they tried to write me up, I called Austin and I said, show me a check and I'm in. And he's like, where you at? He drove over to me, showed me his paycheck, and I was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Where do I sign up?
Well, I always
said,
that was it. I thought the route specialist was like the worst job you could ever have. I never held that role, but I saw the way they treated those guys. You know, like you said, if you had to run a route that day as a route specialist, you'd run your route and you come back. You weren't going home. You were either going out to help somebody or going to do this or going to do that or doing this paperwork. And
yeah, every day was a constant question mark of what you're doing. And every day was usually the worst scenario they could give you. You know, so I was happy to get out of it. I told my wife when I was getting ready to leave, I told her, I said, I feel like I'm in a burning building and I'm the only one that can see the exit.
Oh yeah.
And I said, this place has just lost its ability to value its people or to care about what they're doing. It's a whole bunch of people who are lazy, who don't want to do anything, and a whole bunch of people who are doing everything. And I was like, I'm tired of doing everything and not getting anything for it. And I was like, I'm out of here.
Well, they put
but money was the bottom line.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like, you know, it wasn't extra money for doing the work. And I thought, if I'm going to work this hard, I might as well get paid for it.
Yeah.
And so several of us left around that time and came to the company we're at now, which I don't usually talk about. I just kind of steer away from that because I don't want anybody there caring about what I say or about them or whatever. But,
yeah.
I mean, I was thankful for the money.
Yeah.
And back when I came to work for this company, it was rough, and there was no DOT regulations, and if there was no real focus on it. So there was a lot of years of running 18-hour days, 20-hour days, back to back, a lot of zombie driving, a lot of really dangerous stuff. But you know, you get through that part, and then Tracy Morgan gets hit by a Walmart truck, and suddenly things get better because a lot of focus is drawn to us, and they start making things safer right away, which is which is fine. We had a lot of guys complain about it, and a lot of guys, I don't want to do this. This isn't what I used to do. And then they go, wait, this is actually safer. Okay, maybe this is for the better.
Yeah.
And you go, all right, it's not so bad. Okay, I like the regulations now. Thank God they're not running me as hard as they used to, which is good because, you get older and you don't have the energy for that kind of stuff. And,
oh, yeah.
That's
what I'm kind of, feeling now,
yeah.
Running 6.5 years at Coke on a truck, and then I'm almost 7 years here,
Yeah.
You can't do this job forever.
Well,
I am thankful that my body is still, letting me.
Yeah.
Look at some of the other people that we've worked with, And
I started in 98. That's the first time I put a hand truck in my hand and got a CDL. And so we're in 2019 now. It's 21 years of doing that. And I don't have excitement for it anymore. I don't have anything to prove.
Not out there trying to run
No.
a 4-day,
No.
a 4-night Zaxby route.
No.
1,500 cases.
No.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Now I'm more.
Everybody's like, you know how much money this route makes? I'm like, well.
Now I'm more like in the mindset of prioritizing. This is the thing I do for money, and then when I get home, I can't wait to do the thing I like to do, which is kind of what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm fascinated by your path of, at a certain point in life, going, you know what? I'm going to teach myself how to play guitar.
Yeah.
And you put videos on your Instagram. If you guys want to check him out, he's on Instagram, Quade Richardson, Quade Richardson.
Q.A. Richardson.
He's playing 90s rock music, which I grew up with, and jamming out with guitar, and it's fucking awesome. That and teaching yourself how to make beer. I think it all started with a Christmas gift, didn't it?
Well, no. I got into craft beer probably 3 years ago, maybe 2016. When I looked at beer back then, it was drink, get drunk,
Yeah.
and it was, natural light, stuff like that, and then...
Whatever you get cheap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now it's more, I don't know, it's like a flavor, it's kind of like with cooking,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same way I feel about bourbon, I don't drink bourbon just to get a buzz or something. It's more of the flavor and, just tasting different ones and comparing and picking up these notes and that note, and flavor. But anyway, I got in probably craft beer about 3 years ago, and me and my cousin and another guy named Chad, who was actually his boss, we started seeing the scene around Florence. I mean, you got Southern Hops, which is real good friends with Jimmy. You got Seminar, them guys pretty good, and you got Locomotive. So, and I'm sure there's probably a bunch of other home brewers out there too.
Yeah, but those are the big ones in Florence.
Yeah, those are the biggest ones in Florence, and not saying anything against them, but it just I don't think Florence is really a craft. I think there's a small circle of craft beer lovers here in Florence.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you got your people coming through. You know, you got Mellow Mushroom right there. They got a good selection, but
they've been really supportive. Them and the I've noticed Southern Hops has been really supportive of like local brewers making stuff and try this out. Can you mind if I sell this here? You know, and kind of giving them a shot.
Yeah.
And you know, like you were saying, we haven't yet got to that point where there's a lot of following behind it. But I can see it growing there.
Oh, yeah.
Like our town alone, the way it's grown, just in the past, 5 years, with Otis Elevator coming to town, that's brought so many jobs. And, GE, they shut down several plants and moved all their people here. What's the other? West Rock closed a few plants up north and moved their people here and expanded their facility here. Jobs just keep flocking to our area. Too. We are extremely lucky in the fact that Florence is in a financial boom where a lot of the country is kind of struggling. I think what they're finding up north is that the unions are sort of running off jobs. Even though I like I'm supportive of the idea of unions. I'm supportive of the idea of, if you ever watched the movie Hoffa, in the beginning, like, working conditions are awful. I mean, people are working dangerous jobs, and it's like, drivers are falling asleep at the wheel, and they're there's a scene of Danny DeVito's got a cigarette in his hand, and he doesn't smoke it. He just has it in his hand so that if he falls asleep, it starts to burn his fingers.
Yeah.
And he's got burn marks all over his hand from doing it for years. And it's like, the reality was there was no regulation. There was no concern about the American worker. There was no, policies on, safety or anything like that. And it all started with a good idea, but it's sort of like anything else. As soon as it gets going, it loses its whole purpose. And it just becomes a thing of politics and a thing of people taking advantage of the situation or the system. And, they drove up the cost of everything to the point that jobs left a lot of the North and a lot of America. I mean, just our area alone, we lost a lot of textile stuff due to the trade policies that were instituted. But those weren't union jobs.
Yeah.
But the jobs that are up north that they're leaving and coming down south to open up shop, they're coming down here because we don't have a union. And they've realized the big thing. When I was at Coke, I wanted to go into management, and I expressed interest to somebody. I said, I want to do this. And they said, all right, well, we have like a preferred reading list. We want you to read these books. One of the books was this little tiny red book, like no bigger than my iPad, called Good to Great. It is the most boring book I've ever read, but I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot because they talked about scenarios like Nucor Steel. Nucor Steel wanted to be a powerhouse steel company, but they couldn't compete with Detroit and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Those were where steel came from in America. But they knew that if they came down south and came to where farmers were predominantly working, that farmers were known to work hard. And they were like, these farmers are only used to making, this amount of money per year. Mm-hmm. And, let's just ballpark it and say $50,000 a year. Okay? That's a vast number out of the sky. I didn't pull that from anything. I can't remember what the actual number was. But let's just say it's $50,000 a year. Okay? You got union workers, steel workers up there making $80,000 a year. Okay? You could open up, they figured out you can open up a steel factory in the South, and you could hire 3 farmers to do the work of 8 steel workers from Pittsburgh, pay them like 5.
Yeah. Pay
them more than expected, and they'll work even more for you. They'll be more, it's the best money they've ever made in their life. They're used to hard work. They're loyal.
Yeah.
And because of that, like, you get the best of everything you wanted. You're saving money because you're not paying 8 people to do the job that these 3 are doing, and you're paying them way more than they've ever got in their lives, and they're getting a better product because these guys are suddenly passionate about the fact of, holy crap, my life just got so much better. And, from that, I kind of gathered, okay, this is not just the steel industry. This is across the board industry. Anything that was, having inflated prices up north, why wouldn't they move south? You see right now in our state, Volvo and Mercedes moving their manufacturing here, Boeing coming to South Carolina to make planes. It's like, holy crap, dude. BMW, yeah.
Upstate.
And we're in a very unique position because across the board, like everything that I see about people living in different areas about their struggle, it all boils down to jobs.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think we take for granted how many opportunities are available in our area. And, you know, a lot of our youth right now just don't understand how lucky they have it that they live in an area where they can just go down the road and get a really good job if they just put forth the effort.
And I think the internet's kind of made it harder. You know, back in the day, well, I know especially when I first had my first job when I was 15, I could only work weekends, because of laws. Yeah. But I started off bagging groceries at Winn-Dixie.
Hey, me too.
But
I was at the one over there where Office Depot is now.
Across from BB&T?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
right. Not the big building. When they were in the building across the street. Office Depot.
Yeah, the old Kroger?
Yeah, it's like shaped like this. No, not Kroger.
Okay.
The one that's got Office Depot and then Fred's.
Yeah.
And it's like this across from the post office.
Yeah, the building across from it.
Yeah. And then they moved to Kroger when I left there.
Okay. That's where
the old Kroger building.
Yeah, that's where
I started bagging groceries there when I was 15. That was my first legal tax paying job.
That was my first legal job. Anyway, back then you used to be able to go somewhere and say, hey, or walk into somewhere and say, I'm looking for a job. Now everybody wants you to go through Indeed or, you know what I'm saying? It's not like it used to be. And I think they pass up on so many people by doing it that way.
They're looking in a specific funnel to find people instead of looking at the broad spectrum.
Exactly. It's all about pay. Instead of. It's all what you have in writing. It's all what your resume says. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? There's no...
If you're not articulate enough to put everything down,
you
may miss out just because someone doesn't see it.
And also, too, and I think that's a disadvantage because, like me now, me being a college student now, my degree's in management and then I'm going to get my marketing degree, but I need to get my foot in the door now because, by the time I graduate, who really wants to hire somebody over 40 that technically doesn't have any management experience?
Yeah.
Or even in sales, I mean, that's the biggest thing now. I can apply for any kind of job, and if I put on there no sales, technically I don't have sales experience, but with the work, working at Coke, working closely with my pre-salesman, I think I do have some sales experience.
Yeah.
But I've never been labeled a salesman. So when they see that, when you put on there how many years have you worked in sales? I could say
I've got 9 years sales experience.
You know what I'm saying? This and that, but actually a salesman 0.
Yeah.
They're going to look at that and say,
Right. Well, yeah, because it's hard to get your foot in the door, and it's almost like, in a way, you're selling yourself. Another thing I got from that stupid little red book, it says that in an interview, a lot of times people are looking to hire a job. They're not looking to hire someone with all the qualifications. They're looking to hire a person. Because a person can be taught to do almost any job.
Yeah.
Unless it's like brain surgery or a specific kind of lawyer or something you need an advanced degree for. Most jobs, they're looking for personality. They're looking to talk to somebody who, in that short period of time where they ask all the weird questions that they can legally, they're trying to get a sense of your personality. The biggest question is this guy going to show up? Is he ready to work? Yeah. Is he a problem solver? And 5 years from now, am I going to want to say good morning to this douchebag? I mean, because you're talking to somebody, you're trying to get a sense of their personality and a sense of who they are. That's why they ask you sometimes really weird questions. Is they're like, how would you problem solve this? The biggest thing is we're going to have problems in this company, no matter what the job is. Are you a problem solver or a problem creator?
Yeah.
And they're looking for problem solvers no matter what. I gathered all that crap from this tiny little crappy book.
Yeah.
And it's a crappy book. I'm not even lying. It's a crappy... One of the things it talks about is this hedgehog idea of if you do something well, make sure that you do it well. Like, there is some worth in the idea of know your weaknesses and work on them, which is something I got taught in the military. Know yourself and seek self-improvement was one of the leadership traits you're supposed to have. But this book focuses on if you do something well, make sure you do it really well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the thing you do really well is valuable to other people.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the idea of the hedgehog. It knows how to do one thing really well. Yeah. If your thing is being organized, be really organized, and you'll be known as the guy who's really organized.
Yeah.
If you're a people person, be a great people person, and it'll become the thing that you're known for whatever it is, you can decide, just by focusing on the thing that you're comfortable with, what to do. Of course, I like to contradict my own self, and I'm like, yeah, but what else could I be? What else could I learn? Like you're doing now. I want to learn how to brew beer. I want to, play guitar. I want to get a degree. I want to focus on other things. I want to, because
push myself.
You've probably got the same mentality I have. Time's running out. Let's figure this crap out. Let's figure out what I really like. I mean, I've done what I have to do up to this point. Let's figure out what I really enjoy.
Yeah. That's the same thing I told my wife. And I know you've seen it. My stepdad, growing up, my stepdad pretty much raised me since I was 2. My parents divorced. My stepdad's always been a hard worker. Didn't have no college. Him or my mom. Nothing. Then my mom went on disability. She's been over 20 years. So he was pretty much the only one bringing him. Of course, she got disability money, which still ain't much. But anyway, he didn't have the best job ever, but, we never went without.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he taught me how, first person to teach me how to balance a checkbook. And, it took me forever to, I never realized this when I first started working, when I first got my own checking account. All right, you got this much money in the bank. All right, you write this check. It's going to take a while for that check to clear. So you got to go ahead and deduct that. You know what I'm saying? And it took me a while to process that. I was like, well, here, let's just say I got $1,000 in the bank. I wrote a $200 check. In my mind, I still had $1,000 in the bank. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, luckily, I always had this overdraft protection, and it kept kicking in. I couldn't ever figure out, what am I doing wrong? And he's like, you got to, that's one thing you got to do. You've got to keep on top of this checkbook,
Yeah.
So anyway.
Personal finance is tough to learn, and I wish they taught it in school.
Yeah.
Instead of just teaching you like when I was in school, economics was all about like a broad spectrum version of what economics is. They never taught you like how to write a check, how to do personal finance stuff, how to apply for a loan, what it means, And a buddy of mine's mom, shout out to Donna, she taught my buddy Greg, when he got a part-time job, he was like, I'm bringing home this much every paycheck. And she goes, put half of it in the bank. He's like, what? But I want to spend it. And she goes, don't. Put half of it in the bank.
Yeah.
You keep putting half of it in the bank. And she says, you'll be surprised how it adds up. And he's like, and he kept fussing at her. And, he's like, I want to spend it. My buddies are spending their money. She's like, your buddies are going to be broke. And he kept putting half in the bank. And before he knew it, he had enough money to go out and buy himself a new car. And he was able to get what he wanted instead of what he could afford. And he was so happy when he bought that car. He was like, I bought this with the money I saved out of every paycheck. And I was like, that's really awesome. His mom, she worked as I got to have her on the podcast. She worked as a secretary at ESOB and until she retired. But on a secretary salary, she paid off her house early. She paid cash for her vehicles and is retired now with a really good life and was a really smart financial person. And I'd love to find out where in the heck she learned it from. But she's given me little nuggets of things along life that are like invaluable. And I heard her say that one time about the half your money, and I was like, God, I'm too far gone now. But if I ever get to that point in my life, that'd be really smart to do.
Oh yeah. But I want to go back to the beer brewing thing, so I can close that out real quick. Let's just.
Well, here's how I saw it. Okay, I'm looking through Instagram and I'm like, oh, there's Quade, and I start following you, and then you're like, okay, so I got a home brewing kit for Christmas or something like that. Was it a Christmas gift?
Well, I just went and bought one,
and I was like, holy shit, he's learned how to make beer. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Well, luckily, my cousin and Chad, they work for was it BSM? So anyway, they deal with ferment and everything every day. They make the. I can't exactly remember the name of it, but it's like the brain stuff they put in formula to help brain development and stuff.
Yeah.
So they deal with fermenters on a daily basis. So they kind of got the brains, with the all this. I'm kind of the do boy in it, But anyway, we just got to the point where we were, drinking everybody else's beer, and we were like, you know what? I mean, let's try this. So we bought some kits. And when I say kits, it's pretty much, it's just like cooking. You know, you buy a recipe and you just follow it step by step. So that's how it kind of started. And we've got I say they bought a couple of pieces of nice fermenters. So I mean, I haven't been able to brew with them the past couple of times because I'm always out of town. But anyway, I think next we're talking about doing a stout. I want to do like a bourbon barrel. That's kind of the beers I'm in right now. You know, especially for the time it is in winter. I love, you know, good dark beer, especially a high ABV. You know, bourbon barrel is probably one of my favorite. You know, but that's just how we kind of got into it, and we've just kind of been here lately trying to come up with our own recipes and trying this and that, and it's definitely a learning experience. It's, you know, tweaking this, trying that, because you know, the past few batches that we've put out has actually been decent, but there's still little things that we want to tweak, you know.
I like a lighter beer. Like, I'm sure you've seen the Leinenkugel Summer
Candy.
Yeah.
All over I know you love the
page. I love that summer beer. See, here's the thing. Like coming up, I did the same thing. I drank, you know, like the Bud Lights and whatever was pretty cheap, and, you know, Miller Lite, Bud Light, Coors Light, whatever. But I never really got into the IP beats. You know, I just couldn't quite get the IPAs. I couldn't get the taste for it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care for a stout. I don't really care for and it's sort of like one of those things. You know, you think to yourself along the way, is it just that I'm a wuss and I'm not willing to try it? And I was like, let's try it, because you know, whatever. You always hear that people who drink wine is an acquired taste. And like, how much wine do I got to drink to acquire this taste? Because I mean, I keep trying different ones and I'm not quite in. Now that I'm getting older, your taste buds do change. I mean, you know, I heard a podcast one time. I heard a podcast one time where this guy said every cell in your body is completely different within 7 years. Your body constantly regenerates its own cells. So, you know, it's the idea of the 7-year itch. You know, in a relationship, when you're with each other, 7 years later, you're like, I don't even feel like I even know you anymore. Well, okay, part of that's on you.
Yeah.
Because you didn't make an effort. But you can also become different people. And along that journey in your relationship, you can choose to learn to care for that person again and love that person again and admire the things that they're growing into, because you don't realize it, but you're changing as well.
Yeah.
And if you're not living.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got to change. You got to question, you know, what I want to do in life. What is important to me? What am I having fun doing? And try it. Try some stuff out. But also, you know, you keep in the back of your mind, all this is for a reason, and I either have to choose to be in this with this person or not. But taste buds wise, you know, as a kid, you're like, I hate eating this vegetable or that food or this meat or whatever. And you get older and you're like, hey, this is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, beer will be the same way. Beer will be one of those things that as I get older, I'll be able to drink more beers. Didn't work out that way. When I was in the Marine Corps, I could drink, you know, a lot of stouter beers, but I was also living a sort of unhealthy lifestyle at a certain point when I was married and went through a divorce, and I still had like 6 months to serve, and I was really depressed, and I was drinking because I was depressed, or because I was bored, because I had, you know, time to myself of thinking, where did I go wrong? And I was sort of more willing to just drink just to drink. And my mom was concerned. She was like, you know, we have alcoholism that runs in our family with the men in our family, and I'm concerned about this. And I was like, I can quit, and I'd quit, and I'd stopped for, you know, several months, and I was like, okay, so it's not that. And then I went back to try and drinking the same drinks that I drank before, and I couldn't. I just lost the taste for that style of beer. And I thought, okay, what am I really drinking for? Is it, like I've heard Bert talk about it on his podcast, he likes to have a celebratory beer, you know, or to, you know, I can't sleep, and this kind of helps me unwind. And I thought, well, mine's not, I mean, sometimes it's celebratory, sometimes it's like, all right, we did good, let's have a drink, you know, but it was like, sometimes it was the anticipation of the party.
Yeah.
It was, oh, we're going to have a fun time, we're going to do this, let me go ahead and have a beer before everybody gets here, and by the time they get here, I'll just coast this nice buzz. And that's kind of what it became. It was like, I just want to maintain a little happy buzz.
Yeah.
I don't want to get drunk. I don't want to feel awful. I don't want to. So like you learn as you get older, you may have a sensitivity to gluten, or you may have a sensitivity to rice or wheat or whatever. And so you go, okay, well that beer, like I like the beer, but if I have like one, I feel terrible the next day. Whereas this other kind is maybe made with different ingredients. And you go, Okay, with this one, I can drink a couple, and I feel fine the next day. I don't feel hungover at all.
Yeah.
And Leinenkugel was one of those that I didn't ever expect to like it. I mean, at the time, I think my wife and I had gone to Mellow Mushroom, and again, them promoting, new stuff that's out.
Oh yeah.
We went to Mellow Mushroom after we watched my sister's twin boys. They were like, I think they were maybe 6 months old or 8 months old, and they were a handful. And we were so stressed out and exhausted by the time we gave them back to her. I was like, I need a beer. And she goes, me too. And my wife doesn't drink beer, but she was like, me too. And so we went out to Mellow Mushroom and we had a pizza. And at the time, I think I ordered a Blue Moon on draft, which is good to me. I like the wheat-based beers. But I even like the little taste of the orange on the side. It's kind of nice. But, I had that. And my wife tells Lady, she's like, I want something, but I'm not really a beer drinker, but I'm kind of looking for something. And she goes, what about this Leinenkugel? And she kept saying the word Leinenkugel, and I was like, what is she saying? I don't even know how to pronounce what she's like. And I'm like, surely I can mimic what someone says. Yeah. Leinenkugel? What are you saying? What are you saying? Slow it down. And she brought out a thing so I could see what it was written as, and I'll go, Leinenkugel. Okay, I got it. All right. So she brings it out. My wife drinks it. My wife loves it. I take a sip of hers. And I've already had my Blue Moon, and I'm like, nah, I don't care for this. And I kind of
that taste already.
Yeah, I was just like, nah, it's just not for me. And I kept drinking mine. Meanwhile, she orders another one, and she was like, I kind of like this, So anyway, we left there, and I said, well, let's go to Harris Teeter. Maybe they have some more, because I'm always looking to kind of get her to enjoy life a little bit more than she does, because she takes everything so seriously. So we go to Harris Teeter, and they have it there. So I get her a 6-pack of that, and I get a 6-pack of what I like.
Yeah.
And we go home, we have one more or two more, whatever, and just, relax for the day, and I'm like, all right, whatever. She never drank another one, and they're sitting in the fridge, and I was like, somebody's got to drink these. I don't want to throw them out. I hate wasteful stuff. Like we grew up poor, and so wasting food or drink or anything like that always makes me crazy. So I was like, all right, I'll drink these. I opened up the first bottle and took a sip, and I was like, whoa, this is so much better. And I was like, maybe there's something to this. I bought another 6-pack, and then it just, I was like, this may be my new thing. And it turns out it was.
Well, going back to, you were talking about certain beers giving you hangover and stuff like that. A lot of people say draft beer gives them a headache or makes them more hungover, maybe because of the
carbonation.
The carbonation of CO2.
Yeah.
And
or some use nitrogen.
Yeah.
For part of theirs.
And it's funny. Me and Eric were talking the other day. Shout out to Eric. He was talking about how he likes drinking Budweiser every once in a while, but he likes it on draft.
Yeah.
He said he can't drink it out in the bottle. He said if he does drink it out of the bottle, he's got to pour it in a glass because he feels like he's pouring a headache out of it.
Really?
So and I've heard other people say that too. I mean they like.
Yeah, whenever I go somewhere and they want to pour something in a glass, I'm like, just give me the bottle. But
also too, pour it in a glass. You do.
It does change.
Yeah, I mean, it can bring out more flavors, and it kind of aerates it. You know what I'm saying? But I will tell you, when I first started, I used to hate an IPA. I couldn't stand it. But a lot of people, you can compare an IPA to grapefruit, even though there's no grapefruit in it. That's just a hop. See, and I love grapefruit.
For people who don't know what IPAs are, you want to explain what IPAs are?
It's a Indian Pale Ale.
Which basically means?
Well, I want to say, don't quote me on this, but it started...
It doesn't have to be factual. This is stuff I heard.
Yeah. No fact checking.
No fact checking. Don't Google this.
But something I think they used to put them on ships for certain times and ferment for a certain amount of time, and way back when, and then that's how they kind of fermented and got all their goodness.
Like the hops would come from India is supposedly the story.
Well,
I think. Yeah,
or somewhere on that base, yeah. But now, there's all different kind of hops. You got Galaxies, Sycamore. I mean, there's tons of them. And Galaxy is one of the hardest ones to get now, and I don't know why. There is a hop farm upstate here in South Carolina. There's only one that I know of, but a lot of these hops are imported, from other states.
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't like an IPA. I mean, I just couldn't drink it. It was the nastiest thing ever. And I found out, just like with anything else, if you want to venture out to an IPA, get an IPA and pair it with food. You know, that's the same thing with wine. See, I like wine. I think I got that because I worked at the Florence Country Club for 3 years. You know, I started off there 16. After I left Winn-Dixie, I started valet parking cars. Then I made my way into banquet side. Then I made my way into the mixed grill back there, which was the private dining. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we used to do these fancy wine tastings and stuff like that, and that kind of got me into...
I've always heard pairing it with food is kind of the way to go.
Oh, yeah, that's a good... if you, like you said you hadn't really acquired a taste for a wine.
Yeah.
Next time you go to the store and you feel like you want to cook a steak or a piece of fish or something, look up, what wine pairs good with this and get it and just... That's a good way to start to open up and see what's out there and find something you like.
We've kind of found some wines that we like. Like she's always been the sweeter wine kind of person. I remember back when I got in the military, I was friends with this guy named David, who we used to hang out all the time. Shout out to David. He got into buying Kendall Jackson Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Back in the early 2000s.
Oh yeah, that was big then.
We'd have a Chardonnay and grill steak almost every weekend, and it was really good. I was like, I kind of dig this. Kind of get into it, and I got out of it for a long time. Well, fast forward to my wife and I are, trying to get into wines because some of our older friends are drinking wines, and we're like, we should be drinking wine probably, and it's I guess more accepted to have a glass of wine versus a 6-pack of beer.
Yeah.
And definitely less calories.
Yeah. Good for the heart too, especially the red wine.
Yeah, the red wines, I guess the tannins or something like that in it are supposed to be really good for your heart. But we just couldn't find a flavor that we both liked, and it was hard to find a flavor we liked. Period. But she started buying these Merlots. We were at Olive Garden and had a Merlot, or not a Merlot, a
Cabernet.
No, what's the Moscato?
Moscato,
which is like a dessert
sweet,
wine.
Yeah.
It's real sweet. Okay, so fast forward to, we go down to Universal Studios Orlando, and we're at that City Walk thing, and we go to an Italian restaurant that's at the City Walk. I can't remember the name of it, but they make real pasta, like on site. Every piece of spaghetti and whatever pasta you order, they make from scratch.
Yeah.
You get to watch them do it because the way the place is built is like a weird horseshoe shape, and they dry pasta in the center of the place. You get to watch them make it and hang it and dry it and do the whole thing, and you're like, holy crap. But we were talking to the guy there, and they didn't have Moscato. We wanted a glass of wine, and he goes, we have this sweet Riesling, this Pacific Rim sweet Riesling. Brought it over. We both loved it. I was like, wow, this is good. Riesling, huh? Okay, well, maybe I need to start looking at Rieslings. Fast forward to, my wife makes some girlfriends at the gym, and they're like, oh, we're gonna branch you out and get you to try other things. So they start bringing her this, this other stuff, and one of them was there's a winery in Monroe, North Carolina, called Treehouse Winery, and they brought a bottle of Merlot from that was fantastic. I mean, it was a game changer. I was like, holy crap! Like, I really like this, and so we would buy a bottle once in a while, but it's hard to find because they don't sell it here. You have to go to Monroe and buy it. Which, if you're ever going to Charlotte, it's really, like, if you go the 151 route, it's like right there off the beaten path, just a short drive, and really cool place. They got tree houses there on their property overlooking the winery because it's like on the side of a hill. Yeah. But it's like you're driving through some neighborhood, and then all of a sudden there's a winery. You're like, holy crap! Like, it's you wouldn't see it like in a neighborhood, but you're like, this is pretty cool. But they do outdoor concerts, and they do things where you can book the tree houses and stay in them.
Really?
And like have like a like an evening of, and they do food and.
Huh.
But yeah, the last time I went through Charlotte, we had started buying a couple bottles here and there, and I told my wife, I was like, we keep hosting these events at our house with friends. I'm just going to buy a case of this, and she was like, no, don't buy a case. I was like, I'm buying a case, and I went and I asked the lady, I said, how much is a case? And she said, you want to buy a case? And I was like, yeah. She goes, if you buy a case, I'll knock price down 20%. And I was like, done, son. Yeah. Bought a case and brought it home, and we started giving them out as Christmas gifts that year. We're like, here, you have a bottle. You have a bottle. It was like, and we liked it. And then, again, like she just went to a Christmas show in Charlotte, and there's always a winery type, sampling booths, and they try to arrange their day where, okay, now we've eaten, now we can go over here and try these wines that we won't get, so sloshed we can't stand it. But they go and they try these different wines, and then, she always comes back with bottles of wine of, you need to try this one, and you need to try this one. I'm like, okay. So it is that branching out and trying different things and not being afraid to try it, but also, understanding that your taste buds do change.
Yep.
And every once in a while you come across something that you've never had before. When we were down in Disney this last time, we went to a place there outside of Epcot. There's the boardwalk with a bunch of little hotels around it, like the Beach Resort and Yachtsman and stuff like that. They have a restaurant on the other side of the waterway called the Flying Fish Cafe, or Flying Fish Market, or Flying Fish something. Anyway, it's an expensive place to eat, but like we always do the dining plan, and we used 2 table meals to have a really nice meal at this place. And we're talking to the lady who was serving us, and we both ordered like a sea bass. We don't normally order the same thing, but we both saw that, and the way it was explained of how it was cooked with like a red wine reduction on it and capers and stuff like that. I was like, ooh, this sounds fantastic. We both ordered the same thing. Talking to the lady about wine, she's like, I really recommend the Cake Bread Chardonnay. And we'd never heard of Cake Bread before, but again, there's a lot of brands out there you don't normally hear of. So we're like, all right, let's try some of the best Chardonnay I've ever had. I was like, whoa, this is really good. So come back to Florence, they carry it at Mickey Finn's. I was like, right on. But,
well, that's how I kind of got, like I said, when I worked at Country Club,
yeah.
These doctors would come in and do these wine tastings. And I remember one time, old Roy Skinner, who was my doctor, before he passed, it was a bottle of wine. It was 100 years old. It was a red wine.
Whoa.
And
that had to be expensive.
Yeah, they would bring a bottle and share, you know what I'm saying? Big party. But anyway, there was still probably about that much left in it. And when he left, I asked him, I said, what are you going to do with that wine? And he's like, here, and gave it to me. I'm like, so I remember I took it home, and this is before I was really into wine. I got home, this is when I was still living at home. I told him what I stood there, I was like, I got a little bit of this, it's 100 years old, let's try it. And, it had all the sediment in it, and we poured it in, and I was like, this tastes like shit, But
people drink this on purpose?
Yeah. But I love a good Cabernet. That's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I'm a red wine drinker. Don't get me wrong. I love, a good Chardonnay or a good Sauvignon Blanc or, whatever like that. But I love a good Cabernet, especially with a steak. Like I said, that's the thing. You start, buy a bottle of wine, pair it with this, and just start seeing what you like, you know. And also, my cousin's wife, Sarah, shout out Sarah, she likes a good Malbec, which is a red wine too. And I'd never, until we kind of all started hanging out, drinking wine, like I said, I was a Cabernet fan. I think we invited them over to dinner one night. She brought a bottle of Malbec, which is, some of them have a little spice to it, but it's a really good dry red wine. But my wife too, she likes the sweeter stuff. I like the more drier. Not really big on the real sweet wines, but it's an acquired taste, I remember growing up, and if I was drinking wine, it was Boone's Farm, the old strawberry, Strawberry Hill or whatever it was. I remember I'd get me. That was a cheap drunk then, boy. I'd get me 2 bottles of those and drink both of those bottles that night, and I'd be set, And that's what a lot of people, when they think about wine, that's what they think about. They think about the, you want? I got a bottle of wine. Like, what you got? You got some Boone's Farm or maybe some Thunderbird or something like that.
Some good and bad memories all surrounded by the Strawberry Hill wine. Ugh. Now I think about it, I'm like, oh, that was awful. Yeah. But when you were younger, you're like, hey, it's cheap and it doesn't taste bad, and you're like,
I could get drunk off of 2 bottles. I got $4 in this,
Not great.
But going back to the guitar thing,
how'd you get started with that? You're just like, I'm gonna learn this.
I was 13, and me and 2 of my other friends, Robbie and Brandon, just music's always been a big part of my life, and I think growing up, my parents divorced. I think that had a big toll. I was only 2 years old, but being from a divorced family, and I wasn't the best kid. I had a bunch of anger issues, and I think that was kind of my escape. And I think I got my love for music from my granny.
Well, I'm 45. How old are you?
I just turned 39.
Okay. So you're my sister's age.
Yeah. Well, me and Brandy, we graduated together.
You know Brandy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up in Oakdale. She grew up.
Shout out to Brandy.
Yeah, shout out to Brandy. I grew up on Dunes. She grew up on the other end.
We were on Firestone, yeah.
Yeah. See, and I was down before you get to the lake on
Dunes
the right.
Dunes met us on that
corner.
Yeah. And then it wrapped around into Oakdale.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, me and Brandy gone to school together since elementary school.
Okay.
But anyway, that was kind of my escape. I've always loved music, and like I said, I think I got that from my granny. She played guitar, a lot of gospel music, sang in the choir. She died when I was 2, so I didn't really get to meet her. But I think that's where I got, and my uncle too. He's musically talented. But anyway,
a lot of that's genetic.
Yeah. But anyway, we decided one day that we were like, hey, let's learn how to play guitar.
Yeah.
So that was back. I was real big. Kurt Cobain is my hero.
Spirit animal.
Yeah. So and I was big in the grunge scene. That was my music then, and I still love it now. But anyway, we all we saved up our money, and this is when Parker Music was in Florence. I went and bought my first. I bought they say you should never sell your first guitar, and I did. It was a PV Predator. It was black. It had one humbucker pickup on it. And I bought this little Fender amp, and I thought I had something, But anyway, we would get together, and they got these guitar magazines. They're called like Guitar World, stuff like that, and they got the tablature in it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to read music. I can read guitar tablature, but that's how we would learn.
I bought some of those, and would look at the back and go, oh, look, hieroglyphs.
Yeah. So we'd all meet up, and, we'd learn how to play through guitar tablature. And,
oh, that's awesome.
And we'd get up and just start playing, and it just kind of started from there. That was kind of my escape. And,
wow.
I had that dream one day I wanted to make it big, and I never really, physically played in what you would call a band, never played anywhere. I always had that kind of stage fright, you know what I'm saying? I never liked to be the center of attention or anything, but we would always get up. I've jammed with different people. We'd get up on the weekends and somewhere and jam. And we actually, I wish I had the picture. I got to find it. I don't have it in here. But we actually did start this band. We never played anywhere. It was more of it didn't last long. We called ourselves Downtime. And it was more just a fun, Yeah. Then the older I got, I realized, I'm not going to be a rock star, but
well,
I put it down for a long time. Once I got married and Kessler came along, I put it down for a long time. I actually bought her a guitar and amp probably 3 or 4 years ago for her birthday.
Did she play?
No. She's so busy now. And see, I don't have the patience anymore to sit there and teach. I would love to teach her just the basic chords and then tell her, all right, here's what I'm going to teach you.
Yeah.
You can either go get more lessons or take it. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, she stays so busy. I would love to be able to play with her.
Like you see stuff on Facebook. There's the video now of the girl playing the drums.
Oh,
she's so excited that she's nailing it, and she's like,
"Ah!"
Like she's just.
Well, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
My buddy Brandon, when we first started playing, I mean, you would think within the first year that he'd been playing for 20 years at the age of 14.
Yeah.
Which is, that's impossible, 20 years. But anyway, it was natural to him. He could pick up stuff by ear, and he just, hear, and I was like, God, man, I can't play like that now.
Yeah.
He learned all these arpeggios and scales. There's a lot into it, and I just want to learn songs.
Yeah.
So even now when I play, I'm not really a lead. I like to play rhythm. I like to come up with a guitar riff and then have somebody else play over it.
Yeah.
It's just always kind of been my thing. I guess it's kind of like a beat.
It's weird you say that. Coming up, Kurt Cobain kind of hit a note with a lot of people during that time, and Nirvana, really had an impact on so many people. It's not a mystery. People were talking about even today about that Christmas that the Nirvana drop "Smells Like Teen Spirit." It was the most what was it, the most traded in music to get that CD of any music ever. Everybody was buying music for their kids, CDs for their kids for Christmas, and the kids who didn't get Nirvana were pissed off, and they would go back to the store and say, I got this for Christmas, can I trade it in and get this other one? It's a weird statistic, but like it hit a nerve with everybody during a time where Milli Vanilli was on TV, and they were getting busted for lip syncing their stuff. You had a lot of pop manufactured music that I did not love at all. Thank God, I had a stepdad growing up that had a record collection of like 500 records of 70s rock and 60s rock, and when he was a big music guy, and when CDs came out, he basically just said, "Here, you play with this. I'm gonna go get some CDs," and he started buying new music collection on CDs. Well, he worked at Radio Shack for a while, and I got music stuff. I got components. I was able to, hear a record and go, "Oh, that's really cool," and record it on tape. And I would record tapes and mix music together and have different songs that I liked and make tapes for my friends. I had a dual tape recorder where I could play and record and mix stuff together. And at a certain point, I figured out that my TV had audio out, and I could hook my TV into my stereo and record stuff from movies. Like if I'm watching something on a VHS tape, I can hit play and hit record over here and put the audio onto that. And I was like, "Oh, this is so cool!" And I got to like mixing stuff together, and gotta look at that now, and I think, "Oh, I was onto something." Like if I'd have had the technical know-how, I could have really done something with that. But like again, you were talking about wanting to learn to play. Music ran in our family because, like, my mom at one point played piano. My dad sang. Mom and dad met each other in the choir at church. My grandfather's dad was actually a guitarist for Hank Williams, singer.
Really?
Yeah. And so my papa, his dad died when he was young, but like he went to work doing construction. But he always hated the fact that he didn't get into music. And at random times, he would buy musical equipment and try and teach himself how to play. Never really caught on. But, like, I started listening to bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and all that stuff kind of hit at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
And you talk about it being, the music of your generation. It was the music of my generation. AIDS was a big epidemic that suddenly, before that, everyone was singing about excess and girls, 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 and party all night and stuff like that. Suddenly AIDS is a big scare, and no one's writing about excess and party and stuff like that, because there are people dying of AIDS right and left.
Mm-hmm.
So then it became about angst and anger and frustration and I don't know what I'm doing, and the existential questions that we all kind of had but were afraid to ask.
Being an outcast, I think that's where grunge came from.
Yeah.
I mean, look at
Beck coming out with "I'm a Loser."
Yeah.
Who would have thought that would be a hit? I'm a loser.
Yeah.
Stone Temple Pilots. I'm a creep.
Yeah, and
Radiohead,
ready to creep. Yeah,
all these guys that were like suddenly like, holy crap! Look at my life. What does it matter? REM hit just the right time.
Yeah,
they were coming up with stuff that I listen to now, and I think this was really popular. But also, I hear the lyrics, and I remember what it felt like at that age to hear it and go, "Oh, they were like there was a wavelength of what they were singing
like
that kind of touched something inside of my heart, where you felt like, yeah, no one's listening to me because you're a teenager, because you're a product of divorce. Me too." You start listening to this and going, yeah, no one cared about what I said or what I was doing, and no one listened because they were busy with their own lives. And you get it as you get older and you have kids. You go, well, of course they are, because when you go to bed at night, that's the one thing you're thinking about is me. What did I do wrong today? What can I learn from today? What can I do next? What's this project I got to do for so-and-so?
Well, I think we were very fortunate. We grew up with MTV. I don't think
when they showed music.
Yeah,
just so you guys are aware.
Yeah, music videos. I mean, that was MTV was a big part of my life.
You got introduced to stuff you don't normally listen to.
Exactly.
So at any random time, it could be rap music, or it could be a ballad, or it could be country. At the time, there was no CMT.
Yeah.
There would be country music sometimes, and you're like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." Like stuff you wouldn't normally listen to would be on TV, and you're like, "I kind of dig this." I mean,
I can remember like the summers when you're out of school. I'd get up in the morning, the house would be empty, and my parents would be at work. My sister would be off somewhere, and I'd be getting ready for the day. And I had this, I don't even know, it might have been a 15-inch. It was probably smaller than that old TV in my room.
Mm-hmm.
It stayed on MTV. I'd turn it on, and there, get in the shower, I'd turn the TV up, and or you go to a friend's house, be sitting around watching MTV.
Just have it on.
You know?
Yeah. Because every now and then, like I said, you'd find some new band,
yeah.
and you wanted to be, like, you really wanted to be the guy that came to school the next day and was like, hey, guys, have you heard this new blah, blah, blah? Whatever it was, you wanted to be the one that found it.
Yeah.
And told them about it, because it wasn't like the internet now where you just find everything.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always sitting around with people who go, have you seen these? And it's always, yeah. I mean, not always, but it's mostly, yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Because I look for that kind of crap. But, you know...
Well, see, now it's totally different. You know,
now if music was out, like almost all the music that's on the radio now is so produced and so manufactured.
Well, you got SoundCloud too. That you got kid. And listen, I like all kinds of music.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really care for the newer country these days. I love old country. You know, like you said, like Hank Williams, Marty Robbins, Buck Owens. You know, I like old stuff. That's what my stepdaddy grew up listening to.
Willie Nelson,
8-track, yeah.
Dolly Parton.
But now. You got these sound, and I love hip hop. I love old, you know. I love, the old hip hop. I mean, I love Wu-Tang's probably one of my favorite ever. You know, and you know, back then that was just.
Did you hear the new Joe Rogan with Rizzo?
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've been blessed to see them. I saw them once at the House of Blues, and that was before. That's when Old Dirty was. He was locked up. That was before he died.
You know,
but you know, our parents look at that and like, why? How can you listen to this? But it's just you grow up, and that's it just becomes a part of your life. You know, and I've always been real fascinated with rhyming and beats. You know, a beat to me is almost more important than the lyrics. You know, if I could just listen, if it's a good beat, and then especially, I hope one day before I die, I want to learn how to scratch. I think that is the craziest thing ever to have a DJ scratching records, and I still love that. I love to listen to somebody. If I were to go to somebody's house or go to a party and there was a DJ scratching, I'd be like front row just standing there, just like, I mean, that stuff still amazes me.
There was movies that came out when we were kids of where they were making scratch music records and learning to breakdance, breakdancing movies.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy crap, look at them do that. It's like, breaking.
See, that's another thing. I've always told my wife, I said, I would love to learn how to breakdance.
I think nowadays.
Well, I'm a little too old.
Nowadays, I think I'd break a hip if I tried something.
But I still think that stuff, popping and locking and all that stuff is, I mean, it was way before my time. Yeah. But still, going back and looking at that was, I mean, I would love to go back in that time and walk into like a club, back then where it was nothing but music, people dancing, you know what I'm saying? And something like that break out,
Yeah.
Just like with shagging. I mean, I don't know how to shag. I know the basic steps, but I would love to go to Myrtle Beach back in that time.
I think I'd honestly have
grow up in that time.
I'd have to be born into a different family to appreciate dance as much as I feel like I should, because I'm always amazed at what people can do, but I also don't have that ability at all, or the desire to.
Well,
like when I see people dancing, my dad later in life really got into dancing, and him and his wife have gone to those So You Think You Can Dance shows.
Yeah.
They've actually gone and sat in the audience and watched
my wife
because they like it so much.
It.
And
her and my daughter.
They watch all of the shows together, and my dad has gone to these festivals where there's dancing, and he's got out there and danced and stuff like that, and I don't know, I was raised in just a different time and a different mentality of our whole basis was work.
Yeah.
And there was no dance. There was no talk of dance. There was no dancing at all. If music was on, we appreciated music, but we didn't dance. And I've gotten older, and there's been times in my life where I've danced, and immediately people are like, that was terrible. And I'm like, I know it was.
Well, if I'm dancing, there's usually some liquid courage behind it.
Yeah,
so.
I've gone dancing in my life, and while I'm doing it, I'm thinking, why am I even doing this? I'm not even into it.
Yeah.
Like I'm more into the music. I'm more into watching them play music and appreciating the effect it's having on the crowd. But also, like when I met my buddy Greg in high school, we became friends because of Guns N' Roses. And he had come from Ohio, and Appetite for Destruction was out.
Yeah, I remember. I heard you tell it.
Lies wasn't out yet, but he had an early release of Lies back before early releases were a thing, because he was from the hometown of Axl Rose. He had the CD like 3 months before it came out to the public, And so I was like, you're my new best friend. We went to his house and we sang the lyrics together and learned the lyrics together. And that's when I discovered that I liked singing. And I was like, I've never really sang before.
Yeah.
But also, I was a super shy kid who used to stutter when I was younger. And suddenly I found singing is way easier than talking.
Yeah.
And I was uncomfortable, even in school during that time, I was uncomfortable speaking in front of groups. That was my worst nightmare, speaking in front of groups. But even talking to a girl, like walking up and be like, hey, how are you? You know, I was petrified, but I could sing. And when I found the confidence in singing, I then realized, oh, none of this matters. Like, just forget about it. None of this is serious. Just stop taking it so seriously. And so, you know, I learned from my relationship with Greg that I had a hard time making friends with people who lived here their whole lives because I moved here when I was 12. I didn't relate to the things they related to. And I couldn't break into their friendships because it was like, you know, who are you, kid? You know, get out of here. But I realized that people that moved here, I could be friends with because they have nobody.
Yeah.
So anybody that I recognized was new, I immediately just walked up to and said, hey, I'm Josh. How are you? Where are you from? You know, and that became my thing. From that point on, I thought everyone feels ashamed or weird or, you know, self-conscious, and when they're invited into a new environment, all they're really looking forward to is just someone who accepts them, someone who's willing to talk to them.
Oh, yeah.
And I figured, why don't I just get out of my own comfort zone and force myself to walk up to people and just say randomly, hey, how are you? It's good to meet you. What's your name? Where are you from? And just start a conversation. And I didn't realize it then, but that was basically the basis of podcasting, of what I'm doing now. You know,
you kind of broke out your shell.
Well, not only that, but like I've listened to guys talk about it on their podcasts of, you know, listen, you know, thank God I have this podcast because it allows me to have conversations I wouldn't have had if I wasn't forced to remember, oh, there's a microphone and I got to talk, but also I get to hang out with people that I don't normally get to hang out with and have conversations that are not just, you know, walking by each other and hey, good to see you.
Well, I think that's how I kind of broke out of my shell, 'cause I was the same way.
Yeah.
You know, I was petrified. If I knew, like in school, if I knew I had to like read out loud or something, I mean, I was petrified.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't like getting up in front of the class. I mean, and I think me going, you know, like I said, bagging groceries, you know, you had to
talk to the customer.
Yep. And I think that kind of helped. But really, when I started working at Florence Country Club and waiting tables, I mean, you got to be personal. And I think that's when I really broke out of my shell.
If you want money, you
and realize, and realize that I can talk to people.
Yeah.
And I'm good at it. You know, I mean, that's when I finally realized that, you know, it's not that bad. You know, I mean.
Yep.
But going back to you talking about Guns N' Roses, I got a little funny story. You remember the Appetite for Destruction tape?
Yeah.
You remember? That was one of the coolest things about getting tapes. You know, that you open it up and it always had some kind of artwork
lyrics or artwork or something.
You remember it had the naked woman in it, and it was a drawing.
Yeah.
And shout out to my cousin Brad. I remember I took that tape over, and we were up. I mean, we had to be. God, what year? I mean, we were in elementary school, and he was a year younger than me. But we were up in his room, and I mean, we were blaring, you know, that whole album. I remember my aunt like, "What are y'all listening to?" And she got a hold of that album and opened it up, you know, and there was that naked picture of that woman with her titties out, and that tape got taken, you know. So that was just it was a funny. We always still laugh about that, about that, you know. And I think I don't even know if I ever got that tape back, but I'm pretty sure I went and bought another one.
Actually took me to the farmer's market, not the farmer's market, the flea market, so I could buy that tape because they wouldn't sell it to me at Manifest or at the mall.
Yeah.
They wouldn't sell it to me because it had that parental warning thing on it. And
my
mom's like, what's the big deal about the parental warning? I said, it's because it's got curse words. And she's like, and I was like, that's kind of a thing now. And she's like, okay. She's like, well, we'll get it. And she let me get it. And then she's like, put it in the tape player. We listened to it. And she was like, this guy's kind of rock. And I was like, I know. That was it. Like, she was cool about it. She was like, yeah, whatever. It's rock and roll music.
I mean...
she greenlit it just whatever. I mean,
I can't ever remember my parents being strict about them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't blaring NWA in the house or anything like that, you know? But,
I think out of courtesy is the same reason I didn't do it, because I was like, this is a little vulgar.
yeah, that was kind of when you kind of kept to yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And even back in I remember my Two Live Crew days, too. You know, when I got introduced to Two Live Crew, I remember me and my buddy, he found it in his brother's room, and we'd get off the bus. I remember we'd be sitting there doing our homework, and he had this nice stereo system in his house, like speakers that hung off the wall.
Yeah.
And we'd put that 2 Live Crew in, and I'm talking about we would crank it, son. I mean, and
well, when that
we'd
came
see his
out,
brother get off the bus, like, oh my God, there's Kevin. Like, turn off. We got to go put the tape back now. We weren't doing nothing. But
when that came out, like, a buddy of mine had it, and then we listened to it in his car. And he's like, "Can we make you a copy?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Why?" I was like, I can't listen to that at the house." I was like,
yeah.
I was like, honestly, I said, it's a little offensive for me listening to in your car. I said, but I can do it as long as it's your car and I'm listening to it with you. I said, but I don't really have the need to have it in my house. I said, but also, like, it was weird because in my house language was a little different. What just happened? Did this thing shut off? It did. Oh, my card's full. How about that? All right. We just lost video. If anybody's watching on YouTube right now, they're like, what the hell? What happened? But yeah, in my house, like, my stepdad was a big music guy and big into it. And, like, we watched a lot of offensive stuff on TV at the time, comedies and stuff like that were pretty rough. Eddie Murphy's Delirious and Raw had come out, and, George Carlin was big on HBO. And we watched all that together, and like, it was one of those things that they sort of just greenlit as, hey, this is life. This is kind of what everybody has to listen to anyway. Let's not make it weird. Let's just kind of, help them understand that there's a time and place for this kind of stuff, which was important to learn. And so, like, when I had my own kids, raising my own kids, I tried to tell them, yes, you can say the F word a lot, but do you need to?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I did when I was in the Marine Corps, and even when I got out, I had a hard time working it out of my common speech because it was a crutch. It was a thing I said in between a slow period of conversation, because that's what you did in the Marine Corps. That was how everybody talked. But I had to teach my boys kind of the same way that my parents taught me is, there's a time and place, and you got to know the right time and place, and it's not all the time. And so, anything, like, if the music was over the top with cursing or stuff like that, I was just like, not for me. But like, a strategically placed F-bomb was awesome. Like there's a lady right now, Suzanne Santos. She's part of the Honey Honey Band. She came out with her own album. She's working on her second one. But her first album came out, and there's a song on there where she talks about basically about being, I guess, infatuated with a guy who's wrong for her. And she talks about how they would drink and they would have sex and they would, and the way the lyric goes is, I want to drink and I want to party and I want to, talking about going out into the city, and she's like, let's tear this motherfucker down. And the way she does it, it's very heartfelt and sentimental, but it's also I want you to feel the impact of what it meant to me during that time in my life of, like, we didn't just go out and party, we tore it up.
Yeah.
And just that impact of that one word in that one song, it's the only one on the whole album. I thought, strategically placed, it is so impactful, and it means more because of that. And I thought, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's something about language like that we take for granted.
Yeah.
Like my sister, I taught my sister how to curse, and she started cursing and she started doing it wrong, and I was like, let's have a discussion about cursing. I'm 6 years older.
Yeah.
But, like, I had a really intelligent conversation to her about how to use the F word properly, and I was like, listen, it can be a verb, an adverb, I broke it down and showed her all the conjugations, and I was like, you can say it 1,000 times in a sentence, let me show you. And I did it, and I was like, but did you get anything from that conversation? I said, now, let's have a conversation like this, and at the end of it, I tell you, you know what, and then she was like, oh, I totally dig it. So, like later in life, she was going through something, and she told me, she said, I made a conscious decision to do this because I wanted my kids to know the proper use of the F word. And I was like, what? And it was like a weird existential story about a decision she made, but she was like, I did this so that they would know from me what it means. And she goes, but that lesson came from you. And I was like, oh, that's really weird.
Well, when I was growing up, I didn't, don't get me wrong, my stepdad was mad, he cussed, I mean, there was cuss words flowing around in our house. It wasn't all the time. Right. It was more on like I said, on a mad level or something like that. But my parents were never really strict either about, I love horror movies, you know, and I remember, I mean, I grew up watching all of them, you know, and I mean, you think all the Friday 13th, you know, there was always sex in there, you know what I'm saying, cuss words, nothing I ever really cared, you know what I'm saying, it wasn't like, oh my God, they're having sex, you know, it was all right. And
yeah, my stepdad made that conscious decision too. He was like, I mean, you're gonna know what it is, you know.
And see, I try not to hide that from
make a big deal of it.
Yeah, and I try not to hide that from Kessler, you know, we've never filtered, you know, she loves watching YouTube videos. Yeah. She loves YouTube. And ever since, and of course, you know, she's not old enough to have one, so it's under mine, but it's her. You know what I'm saying? It's through my email. But I even told her, even at a young age, I'm not going to put any kind of parental, you know what's right and what's wrong.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, even look at some of the movies. Look at The Goonies, which is probably my favorite movie of all time. What, there's the word shit in there? I mean, there's like 3 or 4 cuss words. You wouldn't think back then, you know, it's like, you hear it, you know what I'm saying? And even now, I remember we took Kessler to see the first Daddy's Home, you know, with Farrell and Wahlberg. You know, this PG-13. I think Kessler was like 10 or 9. You know, she's like, "Oh, this is my first PG-13 movie." I'm like, "Yeah, it ain't that bad." So, I think the first 5 minutes of the movie, the little girl in there says "dick," and I'm like,
yeah.
And we look around, and there was one woman that got up and walked out with her 2 kids. You know, me and my wife and Kessler still sitting there. I told Carl, I was like, are we bad parents if we still just sit here, you know? I'm like, this is PG-13, and she just said dick, you know? But, I mean, that's just the way it is now. I mean, it's out there. I mean, you cannot, especially this day and age, there is no sheltering your kids. And I don't see a reason to.
I'm looking at the camera like it's still on.
Yeah.
We carry around supercomputers on our hip, or even the watches, where you can watch and listen to anything that's out there. Yeah. Anything, even this podcast, even anything YouTube-wise, anything.
Well, songs on the radio,
song-wise.
I mean, they're talking about
you got to learn
throwing money at strippers, and you know, and they played them. Yeah, they played on the radio.
There's all black and yellow. They're talking about Adderall, and I mean, all these crazy stuff about drugs and the drug life and strippers, and it's like, okay, how do we have this conversation? You know, because you can't really shelter them from everything, because when they finally get released to it, it's going to be like, you know, holy crap, I'm going to go deep to learn everything. Yeah. You're like, whoa, let's slow down.
Growing up, I had a buddy of mine that lived across the street. He went to Florence Christian. His mom taught there, and I'm talking about his parents were strict. You know? His dad...
So he spent a lot of time at your house.
Yeah. His dad found like Adam Sandler, the old Adam Sandler tapes. Metallica, he found something like that, he threw it in the trash. I mean, they were just really, and he got in some trouble. You know, he rebelled. You know, he got caught with a bunch of pills and stuff running back from Houston. Not saying that's what caused it, but I just feel like if you shelter, you're going to rebel somewhere. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, you know, I'm not going to tell my daughter this is wrong. Well, she will know what's wrong. She knows what's wrong and what's right. But you're going to be held responsible for your choices at some time. Yeah. You're going to have to look back and say, you know, this is what I did. Whether do you think it's a good idea or not. You know what I'm saying? But, I mean, I want her to be able to make her own decisions and what's right and wrong. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to punish her for things that I did. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather have a conversation with her and say, hey, I mean, I can't get mad at you for doing it because I did it, but just I promise you, down the road, if it's something bad, you're going to probably regret it. You know, so I don't know. I think you just this day and age is unless you lock your kid in a room with no electronics or nothing, that's the only way you're going to get away from everything.
Well, and we sort of have to be guides in a way and say, okay, this is how you navigate this. Yeah. Let's talk about it. I mean, I constantly had to pull my kids aside and say, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you just saw or what you just heard. Yeah. Let's talk about what it means. What it means to you.
And see, I didn't get any of that growing up.
I didn't either.
It's like if I got in trouble for something, I got my ass busted. Yeah. And that was it. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't no sitting down and saying, hey, you know, maybe this isn't. Let's have, like you said, let's have a conversation about.
But I don't know that. I mean, even doing what I did, I don't know that it mattered or it worked. I mean,
yeah,
they're grown-ish now, but they're still not grown. I mean,
yeah.
they're in their 20s, but I mean, they're still kids in a lot of ways, and they're still learning what to do next. And you know, I don't know that any of that really mattered, because at a certain point, you tune out your parents. I mean, you don't listen.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, my oldest boy, he's getting ready to turn 25, and he's got a different perspective on things now than he used to, because he's out on his own and he's doing it on his own. And he's like, you know, I appreciate this stuff now, and I appreciate the effort. He's like, but honestly, back then I didn't listen, and it's true. And you know, and you feel that as a parent, like conversations that you start having with them, especially when they become teenagers.
Yeah.
You're having the conversation with them, and you're thinking, you're not even listening to me. Like none of this is seeping into your stupid little brain. And I heard it once say that God makes some teenagers so that you're not sad when they leave the house. You're like, good, go, get out.
Yeah.
Go to college. Go live with your friend. I don't give a crap. Just get out.
Well, you know, I told you my parents divorced when I was 2. My mom pretty much got remarried.
Yeah.
With almost in the same year, you know. So my stepdad's raised me since I was 2. And it was rough for a long. I mean, I want to say the word hate is kind of strong, because I can't. I mean, I was so young, I wouldn't say hate. I mean, there was a long time I did not like him at all growing up.
Yeah.
He was real strict on me. You know, if I did something wrong, I got a belt. You know, I got my tail tore up for doing, you know, what I did. But it took me a long time to realize, the older I got, how grateful I was the way he did raise me, because you know, I've never been in trouble with the law, but I've never been locked up. You know, a lot of my friends can't say that. But I am grateful for him. You know, he'd never been married before, never had his own kids, so you know, he raised me and my sister. And it took a long time for me to realize, and you're just thankful for...
Younger sister or older sister?
Older.
How much older?
She's 4 years older than me. She graduated in 94.
2 years younger than me? What was her name?
Stacy Richardson.
I think I know Stacy.
Yeah.
Wait. Is she a teacher?
Yeah. She was at South Lawrence. She's at Mayo now. Yeah.
I know Stacy well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know Stacy real well.
That's my sister.
She taught both my boys in science class, and one of them had serious behavioral problems, and I had to have a parent-teacher conference with my friend, and I'm like, she's like, he acts just like you, and I was like, I know, isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah, she's I think this is her second year at Mayo.
Her first husband, I don't want to get into her person.
Yeah, Stephen. Yeah, he died of cancer. Yeah,
that was heartbreaking. But anyway, shout out to Stacy. Love you, girl. Good. I never made the connection.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I give him a lot of credit. It took a long time for me to realize, you know, as much as I disliked the way I was disciplined then, you know, I'm glad, because I think it's made me who I am. Because I mean, I don't have that. My dad now, I mean, I hadn't talked to him in probably 4 years, you know, and our relationship's always been kind of on and off, you know, but you know, there's things that I think everybody learns from their parents, do's and don'ts of how you want to raise your kid, you know. I mean,
and even when you do what you think is right, you analyze it later in life and you go, did I really do that right?
Yeah.
I
mean, even I do that now with Kessler. You know, I might discipline her way or do something, and then sit back and think, was I really right about that? You know, I need to go talk to her and let her know that, all right, well, maybe I did overreact, or I didn't do what I should have done, and I should have done this. But
you know, and time is a thing, because of our work schedules. A lot of times you're just like, listen, just do this. I just need this done. Like, I don't have time to discuss why, but I need you to do this for this reason. And you know, my wife and I sort of have the opinion of, you see a lot of stuff on Facebook about people saying that, oh, I'm the best mom, I'm the best dad. And you're like, usually those people are not active at all.
Yeah.
They're trying to prove to everybody else, or they're trying to proclaim to everybody. It's like the couple that gets on there and is constantly like, I just love him, he's my whole world. I'm like, who are you trying to convince? Like, if that was the real case, you don't really have to do that.
Yeah. That's what social media's done,
It's like you're trying to convince everybody else that you're okay.
Yeah.
Because there's problems. You know, and I'm like,
I've never, you know, my marriage has never been perfect. My life's, I'm a different, and my wife will tell you this. My daughter will tell you this. I'm a difficult person to live with. my friends and I mean even my cousin. I mean everybody know I'm a difficult person. I don't mean to be, but you know you
I think that I'm easygoing until I hear my wife talk to her friends about it, and she's like, "God, you would not believe." And I'm like,
"Well, yeah. Well, I'm an uptight person. I
think I make my wife crazy because all of the projects that I suddenly take on.
Yeah.
And I think me making she's a clean freak, and I think me making a mess is probably the biggest thing that makes her crazy. Because I'll take an idea and run with it, and she's like, "Well, I didn't say run with it," and I'm like, "You said you wanted this done." She's like, "I said we could talk about it," and I was like, "Well, I'm already deep into it, so here we go."
Yeah.
I think that part makes her crazy. She's like, I had no idea you were going to go this far. Like, we were sitting around talking about the podcast thing when I had the app, and all I was doing was just pressing the thing on my phone, and, hey, everybody, blah, blah. And I was like, I think I'm going to make a podcast room. And she was like, what? I said, that back bedroom where all that exercise equipment is. She goes, oh, no, hell no, you ain't. And I was like, yeah, I am. She's like, no, you're not. And then steps along the way as it slowly started to change over, she was like, you had this planned all along, didn't you? And I was like, no, kind of, yeah.
Maybe
I've mentioned it all along the way, but it took you a while to get on board, But like also life throws you curveballs along the way that you have to sort of adapt to, and it doesn't always work out. Like I love to be supportive of people and kind of champion their ideas of what they want to do or what they want to learn, and I always feel like if anybody is successful in anything in life, they want to help other people figure out how to do it. So, doesn't matter what you're into, you're going to find people along the way that have similar interests, and they're like, hey, I've always wanted to do X, Y, Z. Would you show me how? And the one thing that people who figure things out love to do is to show other people how to do it. They're like, hey, I figured out how to brew my own beer. You want me to teach you how to brew your own beer? Or I figured out how to make this chair. I can show people how to make chairs. It's like, whatever. I mean, but you got to have an interest in it. Well, and your interest.
And I think that's the thing you need to instill, that people need to instill in kids these days.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be a part of their life. My daughter, I told her at first, we got her an iPad before anything. Mm-hmm. And, I always said, you ain't getting a phone until you're 13. That was my rule. Well, then all her friends, she's had a phone now for 2 years. You know what I'm saying? We just got her another phone. But like I said, we don't ever really monitor. You know what I'm saying? She knows I can go and look at any time what she looks at. So that's why we try not to, you know what I'm saying? I don't try to put any restrictions on it, but I think it's still really important these days. You got to be involved in your kid's life because, they're bullying.
Cyberbullying terrifies me.
Yeah. Well, look like back when we were growing up.
Yeah.
Let's say if you got bullied at school, it ended at 2:30, 3 o'clock. You came home.
Or if it came to a head, it'd be a fist fight in the parking lot.
But you came home. Home was your escape.
Well, now
with social media, you can get bullied all day at school and come home. Yeah, and get bullied online.
You could be asleep and you could be bullied while you're asleep.
Exactly.
Have you ever seen that 13 Reasons Why?
TV show?
On Netflix?
No, I've come across it. I haven't watched it.
It is terrifying because it's real.
Yeah.
And they show cyberbullying to the point that this girl commits suicide. And no other TV show is out there like it. No other TV show is willing to talk about this issue the way they do it. Each episode, the story is this girl commits suicide because she's bullied. And she makes 13 tapes and has them set up to where they're supposed to go to each person on each tape, and everyone has their own tape. Every tape is an episode. It's kind of a neat idea for a story. But anyway, you're all traveling through this one guy's version of it because it's his turn. And you watch this kid who secretly, loved her, but he felt really awkward and didn't really know how to tell her. And they were friends. And all along the way, you get to see, through her storytelling of what happened in her version of it, the slow descent into how she got to the point where she was raped. There was a lot of, bullying. There was a lot of just rough situations that she couldn't figure out a way out of, and she felt hopeless. To the point that at the end she committed suicide. And they made a decision as a TV show to show it. And they went through the process. I mean, they talk about it after the show. They have like an after the show kind of thing.
Q&A.
They talk about how they really battled with whether or not to even show that part, or if so, how to do it. And they wanted to show it because they wanted people to know that it was a messy situation and that it was hurtful to everybody that loved them and everybody that was close to them, and they wanted people to know that it's not glamorous and it's awful, and they immediately regret it as soon as they're into it, but there's no backing out at a certain point. And the impact of what it had to the families and what it had to the friends that they didn't think they had, but suddenly, like, everyone in your community is affected because of something you did, and you've, in a weird way, caused a lot of hurt to people that you thought weren't on your side, were. And they were hoping that in that it was going to create a conversation with people of, hey, we need to talk about this, because a lot of people are going through this. A lot of kids are going through this.
Yeah.
We need to talk about this more often. We need to talk about what kids are really going through. And, you know, nowadays, like I see it, parents are so busy on social media looking up things that they're interested in, or updating their own status, or taking selfies while they're in traffic. I see this crap all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, you're not talking to the kid in front of you. You're not paying attention to that person that you made.
Yep. And
it's sort of like...
everybody's in their own little world.
It's sort of like being a latchkey kid with a zombie parent.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not around, even though they're right there in front of you.
Well, I'm a big advocate for suicide. You know, my best friend committed suicide at 16. I was the last person besides his parents to see him alive, and that probably screwed me up more than anything. You know, I mean, for a long time, you know, I've lost grandparents, stuff like that, but to lose somebody that you were really close with, especially at the time of my life. I mean, I was 15. It was October of '96. You know, I mean, that's my birthday. You know, my birthday is October 19th. So, you know, I just started driving. I had my permit. And that was a big. That year was, you know, 15, 16, 14, 15. You know, those are a big part of your life. You know, you're trying to figure out who you are, and I still have the guitar and the amp. He was supposed to buy my guitar and amp of mine. And it was right around, like, I think we got midterms or something. And he was originally from up north. He didn't have a lot of friends. And it's sad to say, before we became friends, I used to pick on him. He used to ride my bus, and I used to pick on him. And he didn't, like I said, he didn't have a lot of friends. You know, he was socially awkward.
Just like the rest of us, trying to figure it out.
But we became, you know, good friends. I want to say in 9th grade, I think his grades started falling off, and his parents sent him to Cannon Military School. Came back, evidently something very bad happened there he didn't like. You know, I mean, he never really talked about it. But he was supposed to buy my guitar and amp. He was kind of dodging me that day at school, so I was kind of mad at him. Well, he had changed one of the grades on his midterm report. And I think he like forged his teacher's initials. Well, I think his parents were going to call a school the next day, so he knew he was going to get caught. And I think they were threatening to send him back to Cannon Military School. And evidently that was something that was weighing heavily, you know. But he hung himself in his closet. And that night, I couldn't drive after 9, and it was right around 9 o'clock. But we lived in, I lived on Dunes. He lived in Hampton Point. Yeah. So it's in Oakdale. You know, it wasn't like I had to cross a big. So anyway, I told my mom, I said, I got to go pick up my guitar and amp from Barry, and I'll be back. So I went there, and I'd been in his house before, downstairs. I've never been up to his bedroom. He lived in a 2-story house, and I remember, I called, and he said, I can't get it. I said, all right, I'll be there to pick it up. I got there. He was. I think he was outside. We walked up to his room. I mean, he was laughing, and we were cutting a fool. We were talking about this girl we went to school with that he was telling me right then she had wrote him a letter that day that she liked me. And I remember when we got to his room, it's like when he walked into the door to his room, his closet was to the right, but it faced like the door too. And the doors were open, and I didn't even look in there. I picked up my guitar and amp. We cut the fool. He helped me carry it down, put it in my car. He loved, you remember the band President of the United States of America? Yeah. Remember the Peaches song? Yeah. I think that was just out. And I remember I had my windows down, and I think I had that blare and where I was pulling off. Everything was fine. About midnight that night, my front doorbell rang, and it was Barry Prosser, who was an investigator of Florence County. And You know, they came and got me. My mom was like, "There's a police officer here to see you." And the first thing I thought was like, "The hell did I do?" You know, that's what was going through my mind.
Of course.
So anyway, you know, he took my mom into the kitchen and told her first, and he came back. And
of course, I'm sure his question is, "You were the last one to see him. What do you?"
Well, yeah, and I think that's what it was.
Did he say
you know,
anything?
But
yeah, just trying to put pieces together.
He said, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but Barry hung himself tonight," and that didn't. He didn't say he was dead. You know, the first thing that registered to me was like, "All right, well, he's in the hospital, you know, recovering." But, and you know what's crazy? Probably, I don't know how long before that, but I remember one day, me and him were sitting in the kitchen with his mom, and he was joking about it. He tried to hang himself before, but he kind of joked about it. But see, I never had that closure. I never knew why. And another reason, too, you know, he was from Massachusetts. That's where his body was shipped back to. I never got to go to a funeral. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like I ever had that closure. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get to say any kind of goodbyes. But yeah, and I got this bracelet here. I don't know if you heard about that kid, Caleb Lutz. Probably 3 weeks ago, he took his own life. Didn't know him. He was 18. He went to King's. But Cliff Lee's daughter, they were selling these to raise money for his family. So, but anyway, like I said, I'm a big, and that's one thing I always told my daughter. I said, I'm always going to be in your, you know, you might get mad sometimes at me asking you these questions and this and that, but, you know, if you ever feel like you want to harm yourself or just don't feel right, you start feeling, you know, please let me know, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's yes, suicide is selfish, but it's also a disease, you know. I've been down that road, you know what I'm saying?
Well, especially if you tried it before.
Yeah, I've been to that bottom, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, a lot of people say that, oh, that's the most selfish thing you could do. People that commit suicide are stupid. No, yeah, it is selfish, but it's a disease. I mean, depression is a disease.
Yeah, depression is real, and it has all sorts of levels. You know, I talked about it on one of the podcasts. I said, you know, people don't talk about this enough, and there was a time, I think it was, I don't even remember if it was the spring or the fall last year. I said, I'm feeling a little depressed during this time, and you know, I want everybody to know that everybody goes through this, and it's okay to talk about. And a lot of guys are told, you can't talk about your frailties, you can't talk about what's wrong, you can't have that discussion. And I said, I want to have that discussion right now. I said, I want to say it out loud. I said, I know that this could be listened to by anybody. I said, but know that it's okay to talk about it. And if you're dealing with this and you feel like nobody's willing to listen, come talk to me.
Yeah.
Know that you can talk to somebody. I'd rather you talk about it than take action, because talking about it is a huge step, and sometimes just getting it out in the open makes you feel better. And the weird part was, after I did that, I had a couple people come up to me and talk to me, and me helping them talk to each other, just made me feel better.
Oh yeah,
because then too, they said, I just felt like nobody would care.
Yeah,
or I felt like I'd be made fun of, and I was like, no, I mean,
yeah, you've got to. Hey, you know, I did therapy for about 2 years, and I kind of quit with it. And I mean, it wouldn't hurt me to go back, you know. But yeah, I mean, and I think that's a whole lot of it. You know, I mean, I felt when I was going, you know, I mean, and I always told myself, I'm never going to take a medicine to make me feel different. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I'm never going to go to therapy. I'm not going to sit there and talk to a stranger, you know. But those things have helped me, you know. Yeah. I had to just up the dose on my antidepressants now.
I mean, especially if it's a professional who knows kind of what to say back, it's super helpful. Like, you know, my stepdad's kind of going through some stuff now that he's retiring, or going through this retirement process of, you know, what am I going to do now? Like, his whole self-worth has been surrounded by this job, and like, he can feel like my life is coming towards an end. Like, I'm having health problems, severe health problems. And it's got me scared. And I was like, you know, he talked to me one day for a couple of hours on the phone, and he was like, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, you know, to me it sounds like you need to talk to someone professional who can help you. I said, but if you just want to talk and I'll listen, I don't mind listening.
Yeah.
I said, I know, I can only imagine. I said, listen, you're on the next stage of my life. And when I get to your stage, I'm going to be a nervous wreck too.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's...
I know I will.
You know, it's natural. It doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
But if you want to feel like at least you can talk to somebody, listen, you know, I told him, I was like, I love
especially
you. Especially, I care.
If you get up in that age and you start having health problems, you start worrying, that's not going to do nothing but...
Make it worse.
And you're going...
Yeah. Anxiety.
It's going to bring your death a whole lot quicker, you know?
Anxiety is a huge harm to your own body. But also because of having, you know, blood pressure issues so bad, you know, he can't really go to the gym and work out and work it through. He can't really, you know, exert himself that much because his blood pressure medicine won't let his heart rate get above a certain rate. So it's like he can't even get the release of, you know, being able to physically work it out like he used to.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't imagine what he's going through. But I'm like, you know, if you just want to talk, like, I'm always here to talk. I may not always have the right thing to say, but I'll listen. Yeah. You know.
I mean, that's what I think everybody needs. Yeah. And like you said, people, especially males, always look at that's not a manly thing to do, you know. Well, you know, it's not manly to express your feelings or cry or anything like that, but what's it worth to hold all that stuff inside and carry it with you?
You don't get a special award for if you make it to the end of your life and they go, you know, he never complained.
Yeah, I never saw him shed a tear.
I've never heard that being a good thing.
You know,
I've never heard that being a good thing.
But yeah, I mean, I think podcasting is a good thing. Like you said, it helps people to open up. You know, I think I've heard Rogan say that before. You know,
he's like, I cry more now than I ever did in my life.
Yeah.
He's like, I cry all the time. He's like, and
you know what? And
break me down. When you first started
podcasting, you know, I listened to your podcast. You know, I knew Joe Rogan from. I'm not a big UFC fan, but even from Fear Factor, you know, I mean, everybody kind of knew who Joe Rogan was.
Commercials on TV, you know.
Yeah, but even he's like one of my favorite people in the world now. I mean,
very thoughtful.
He's you know, I remember one time when I knew he was became real to me, like he's you know what I mean, like his meaning being meaningful. You know, I remember he was talking about his dog one time on the show, and he started crying. You know, he was like,
when his dog died.
Yeah, he's like, man, I fucking love that dog. You know, and but and I think podcast is good because it does, like you said, it helps people that wouldn't normally maybe want to talk or open up about certain things, and like you said, just have a conversation and maybe to get stuff out. Maybe
in a weird way, it's making us all better communicators.
Yeah, that too. I mean, it's just like, see, I don't like to read. I hate reading.
Yeah.
Unless it's something I really want, like I'm like focused into. You know, when it come to school, when I had to read this, but you know, if it was on my own terms, I mean, it's just like the more and more you do something, the better you're going to be at it. You know, so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You feel good?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how long we've done. Let's see. Hour and 37. Wow, that's a long one.
Yeah.
I feel like we could keep talking about all kinds of stuff, but we could do this on another day when my stupid camera's working. I brought the wrong camera, and this memory card, it filled up fast. But I wanted to use the GoPro because I think it would work better in the room because of the size. Anyway, people are listening to this right now like, shut up. So anyway, we'll wrap this up. Check out Quade on Instagram. He's posting, you know, some cool stuff about what he's doing in his life, and
yeah, it's nothing family stuff, you know, just
Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah, I like taking.
I saw that.
I like taking pictures. You know, just pictures. Sometimes that's all you got left. You know, I mean,
I think if we got anything to take away from this, it's if you're listening to this and you're going through something, or you know somebody going through something, talk to them. Yeah. Like you know, extend a hand, talk to them, get them to talk. Start a conversation. Start a conversation with people around them. Like, get them to be involved.
Yeah. If you see somebody struggling, you know, reach out to them. You know, even if it's just a phone call or a text, you know, just... You never know what somebody else is going through. You know, and it took a long time for me to get that in my head because I was always focused on me. But, you know, you never know what somebody else is going through. And you just... never know what's in somebody else's head, so you know, reach out.
Sometimes little things can be the seed that starts bigger things. Sometimes conversation or a podcast like this stupid one could be the thing you go, I heard this on the other day, and I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And just start the conversation.
Cause I'm going through something that...
Yeah.
You know, I've always told everybody that, you know, even... You know, I got a nephew who's 24. My niece just turned 20, you know. They've been a part of my life since me and my wife have been married. You know, my niece, like I said, she just turned 20. I've known her for 18 years, or she's known me, you know, so, you know, we've always been close, and I've always tried to tell them kids, you know, I mean, if it's something you can't go to your parents about, or, you know, they know they can come to me or Carmen, or, you know, I mean, like you said, you just never know the biggest thing is you just never know what somebody else is going through, you know, and if you feel like somebody's struggling or they might not be acting right, reach out to them and just say, hey, man, everything good? Doing all right? You know, anything I can help you with?
And I try to also take the approach of, because I ride with different people all the time, I try to have open conversations about things that I fall short on.
Yeah.
And mention to them, you know, yeah, I make mistakes all the time. None of us are perfect. And just start the conversation of, this is how I'm a mess.
Mm.
And, you know, if you want to talk about it, like, I'm here to talk to you. Because I don't want them to feel the disconnect of, you know, I'm just used all the time, or that there's a separation of them and me. It's like, no, I'm doing this too. I'm here with you.
Yeah.
But also, like, I'm also here to help you other than work.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to have something outside of work that we can talk about, I'm okay with that too. Like, you know. But it's guys that don't normally have that access. I mean, you know, them and their friends are all about hunting or drinking or riding motorcycles, and it's like, yeah, every once in a while I feel like a piece of shit, and every once in a while I need a hug. Every once in a while, my wife doesn't listen to me, or, you know, says some crap that I don't quite know how to talk about, and it's like, all right, well, let's talk about it.
You know, my Richardson side of the family, you know, my uncles, two of my dad's brothers, I'm still pretty close to, you know, and I think they come, not saying expressive wise, but I don't think they ever really maybe told their kids as much, you know, I love you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but even though when I talk to them, if I text them or in a conversation, you know, I'll tell them I love you, you know, and my uncle, Danny, he's a vet, you know, I text him on Veterans Day. You know, he did 22 years in the National Guard, and you know, I ended text, but I love you, and he texted me, thank you, I love you too, you know, and I don't think he is used to it, you know what I'm saying? And my Uncle Dale, you know, he had heart surgery a few years ago, and, you know, I make sure a point when I get off the phone with him, I tell you, you know, I love you. You know, even not your immediate family, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I was, you know, these people helped, I wouldn't say help raise me, but mold me, you know? I mean, I looked up to both of them growing up, you know? I mean, my Uncle Dale was a hard worker. He was in the grocery business for 20-something years, if not more, you know? But anyway, I guess what we're trying to say is if you feel like you need somebody, reach out. Or if you feel like you know somebody that needs somebody, reach out.
Yep. That's good. I think we can end on that. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll do this again.
Yeah.
This was seamless. We'll do it next time in the studio. That way I can have the right crap in, or bring the different
Sounds
camera.
Good.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. This is what I'm supposed to say. Cue the cow.
Peace.